Hey guys, welcome to my new video. So this is an extract from one of my one-on-one mentorship programs, and in this extract, one of my students was actually trying to create underground temple setup with that is backlit. So I run through like the basic process of creating an idea mood board, then using that idea mood board and some basic level perspective, we try to block in the whole idea using just a value pass. So let's get started. So as you guys can see, I usually how I start this out is I basically use a lot of photo references. I once I am done with the sketch, I would go to Pinterest and try to find the right photos. Try to find photos that will inspire me. So, for example, for each and every element in the piece, I need to have like a proper reference. What usually happens if you go to Pinterest without the sketch, you would end up losing too much time trying to sort through a lot of random references. So this technique will really help us to avoid that kind of a trap where we are really sure about what we are looking for. So start off with a really rough value sketch, then we can start searching for the references in Pinterest. So these references can range from anything like the lighting, or maybe something simple like the water, like how is the water going to be? Is it going to be mossy? Is it going to be clean? What is the structure of the temple going to be? So any references that will really help us kind of understand this whole environment. So once we are happy with all the references that we have collected, we can go ahead with the sketching phase. So I generally start off with establishing the horizon line because that is really important. We really need to know what are elements that are above the keyframe, I mean above the frame, and what are the elements that are below our horizon line, or basically our eye level. So I go with almost central composition because I this temple is supposed to be a really like a grand or like a very divine place. So I wanted to really give that importance with that central composition. So when I'm blocking out these shapes, I make sure these shapes are traveling in space. So you can use tools like wrap tool or like a distortion to kind of make sure that your shapes are traveling in space. Otherwise, what will happen if you draw shapes that are not traveling in space? Your piece will tend to look more flat. So I generally start off with blocking out the foreground elements. So what I'm doing is I'm using really flat square brush to just really block out like the foreground elements. So according to the story, the temple is slightly ruined temple with a lot of ruins and it's kind of abandoned. So I wanted to get that feel of this place hasn't been visited or maintained in a very long time. So you just have these breaks and stuff just laying out in the scene. So I'm also trying to give like a rough sense of lighting. Basically, right now it's kind of top lit, so that we know like what are the planes that are facing the top and what are the planes that are facing us, basically. So this kind of a little bit of information will really help us kind of determine how these shapes are basically placed in this composition. Oftentimes what I would do is I would duplicate the existing design elements and just place them and slightly tweak them so that it looks like a new detail. You would often do this the same thing in 3D, right? Where you kind of use the same asset, rotate it or tilt it so that slightly looks different in the camera. So we can use the same techniques when you're doing our 2D workflow. So next step would be taking lower value to kind of block the elements that would be behind these foreground elements. Just note that what I'm doing is I'm also creating a depth using values. So whatever is in the foreground will have the highest value range, and as I'm slowly going towards the background, I'm reducing the value range. And next I'm trying to block out the actual opening that kind of will be lighting a whole temple. So I was just inspired by this huge cave system in Vietnam. So I was just thinking could be this huge underground cave system where we kind of see this temple that is lit on the far background, and it's kind of backlit by this huge opening in this cave. So we are trying to kind of get this grand sense of scale. So that is the whole idea behind the this blocking, value blocking. And after that I would generally take like a soft brush to just block in that light that's coming up from the cave, so to give it some atmosphere, just adding that soft brush touch to give it a sense of atmospheric perspective, and also give it that contrast, because you have hard edges in the foreground and towards the end, like towards the background, you have these soft edges. So after this I would be blocking the main temple structure. So again I have proper references for the main temple structure itself, so I would use that reference as a main base, and I would be playing around with the shapes, just trying testing and seeing like what shapes are working, what shapes are not working. And finally what I would do is I would, in order to really make this design stand out, I would start giving it like a backlighting. So again you guys can see that whatever shape I'm placing behind the temple, I want to keep it soft so that the temple, the hard edges of the temple basically contrast with the soft edges of the background. So here I am basically just using the top lighting, and I'm just giving a small sense of lighting on the actual temple structure so that the temple structure kind of blends in the environment. If I don't give the temple like a proper top lighting, it won't look like it's in that place. It will basically without the lighting, the temple will just look out of place. Finally what I would do is I would just block in these popping highlights, maybe to indicate a water surface or like a slightly specular surface, because that will give us a sense of like variety in the texture, and also variety in lighting. And generally that will basically make our painting more interesting. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching the video till then. I hope it helped you guys in some way. And if you guys are interested in taking my mentorship, you guys can check out the description for more information. Thank you so much.